Hi guys, today is the 1st of March 2019 at 6:37 in the morning over here in the UK, and it's been an eventful couple of days. I've just been watching things unfold, and this summit between Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un kind of fell apart yesterday, and it's entirely possible that as part of trying to get the sanctions removed on his country, he could do another test, um, trying to force Donald Trump back to the table to say, okay, we'll remove some sanctions in order for you to stop doing these missile tests or nuclear tests. And it may be connected to this video here. We see a 1 and a 3 or a 3 and a 1 could be a reference to the 1st of March. And we also know that this house kind of has the same shaping as a rocket would with the flames around it. So it's possible they could be a missile test of some kind today. Maybe North Korea, maybe Iran, maybe both, maybe none, but I'll keep my eyes open and keep watch. Obviously, this also represents a house, which could be Capitol Hill or could be Parliament over here in the UK. But I've also got a reference to New York, as we've interpreted before, NY, which it looks like. So it's possible a building on fire in New York could have a reference to Trump Tower. Last year, there were 2 fires there we know of. They don't have a sprinkler system, so it was, good of the firefighters to be able to put it out. But in association with this whole Michael Cohen thing, there's various different departments and organizations, entities trying to get documents out of the Trump organization, and it's possible, a fire there could solve that problem. So I'm keeping my eyes out for that. And obviously, in connection with the 3 and 1, that would be today. So I'm keeping my eyes open today to see if anything like this unfolds, missile launches or, fires in either Washington, D.C. with the Capitol Hill, or in New York with Trump Tower, or over here in the UK with Parliament. I don't know, but I'm keeping my eyes open. And then there is Pakistan and India. Over the weekend, they had some conflicts, aerial conflicts, in which an Indian pilot was captured. And today, Pakistan planned to release the pilot back to India. That may be connected with the IPEC-02 video as well. Osama bin Laden from Pakistan. We have this character here, which represents India. And if this character represents India, we see him in the beginning of the video here, standing on this structure. And this structure is very reminiscent of a fighter jet. If you look at that shape, keep it in your mind and compare it to this shape, it's very similar. Raised cockpit down to 2 extended tail fins. So you can see that there. It's kind of giving you that image. And if this guy, as I said, if he represents India later in the scene, it's possible he represents India now. So could be an Indian fighter pilot we're looking at. And events seem to be unfolding around this time. Obviously, the volcanoes are active that we've talked about. So again, entirely possible those could come into play later on. But then we have, as we've talked about, this whole scene has connection with Egypt again in the background, possible volcanic eruption or nuclear explosion, possibly both. Maybe a nuclear explosion connected to a volcanic eruption, as we've talked about, nuclear devices setting off volcanoes. Representation of what I think is Somalia, the skull and crossbones being my kind of only reference there, connected with the pirate flag. And in the background, we have, flooding, very similar to how we have flooding in the background here, flooding in the background here. Again, this character comes out on an iceberg, which represents a ship in this animation, and it's obviously on water, which again kind of gives you a connection to flooding. So all of that connects to the flooding. Then we got in the beginning of the video the tilted O, the tilted Z, gives you a reference to these 2 letters being shaken, which kind of connects me to an earthquake. O and Z being possible representation of Australia, Oz. The Z, when rotated, could also be an N. The O, if you rotate it, just remains as an O, so it could be a representation of Australia and New Zealand. So taking all of those countries into context, you've got Somalia, Egypt, Pakistan, Iran, India, Australia, and New Zealand. Now, apart from Australia and New Zealand, all of the other country representations have a connection with flooding or with water. And in terms of Australia and New Zealand, they appear to have connection with an earthquake. India also has a connection with an earthquake with this character here in this scene, earlier in this scene, stamping on the ground with the number 9 on it, which gives us a reference to an earthquake of magnitude 9 or above. Now, as we talked about, if an earthquake of magnitude 9 or above occurs in the Indian Ocean, then that would definitely shake Australia, shake New Zealand, and generate a tsunami, which would affect all the countries in the region, but more significantly, the countries that have been depicted in the iPad Go 2 video. They kind of surround the ocean. So Somalia, just there, Egypt, obviously flow into the Gulf of Aden, and you get into Egypt. Obviously that would mean Sudan, Ethiopia, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Oman would also be affected. Iran is referenced in terms of the Strait of Hormuz and blocking it during a tsunami. That tsunami could be generated through the Indian Ocean here. So again, Pakistan, India, flooding kind of both represented. Osama bin Laden, the blue character. So, and obviously Indonesia's there, and Indonesia's experienced an earthquake from the Indian Ocean before, tsunami generated, which had a lot of damage, but this one could be worse. So keeping my eyes open for that potential. I don't know if that occurs today, but in association with this scene, if this is in connection with Pakistan handing back the Indian fighter or pilot to India, then that's happening today. And in the clouds over here, we see a reference to 3 and 1, which again could be March 1st. So keep your eyes open for all of that. It may be that we get a missile test from North Korea. We also get a fire somewhere in New York or in Washington DC or in London. We could also see conflicts escalate between India and Pakistan in association with this Indian pilot. I don't know what could possibly happen, but if this does represent the pilot, then he kind of just commits suicide into the ocean. Take that as you will. But again, in the background, while all that's going on, we've got the reference to this Twin Tower reference, which is the 9/11 reference. So even though I really don't want to be doing this kind of dates interpretation, it's hard to just ignore the real world events that could possibly be connected with this video, especially when they, I'm not working very hard to make these connections, it's just, okay, I see something unfolding in the real world and it's like, this guy represents India in this film. We've seen it, he wears a Shiva mask, it's pretty obvious. So earlier in the film, is it not possible that he's still representing India? And does this not represent, a fighter jet? And could it not all be connected to what's going to be happening today? These are the possibilities I look at, and we'll see. But hopefully we don't. You guys have a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and may the Heavenly Father bless you.